podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
I'm Gary Birtles, one of the old gits from a long time ago. You've got to tune into Tricky Talks, I believe, so just do it. All the best.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I've wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello and welcome along to the Tricky Talks podcast. Now, usually, as regular listeners to the audio version of the podcast will know, we always play the Nottingham Forest and Magic clip only ever on the back of a win, but it was such a good and unexpected result against Man City, I thought it deserved another airing. So here with me to discuss the City game are Kate and Mollo. How are you both doing?
All good, thank you.
Yeah,
Good.
really good. Still sort of processing it in a good way, taking it in, feeling the buzz from it. Yeah, absolutely great.
Yeah, it's amazing how the buzz lasts a couple of days, isn't it, after such a good result, an unexpected one at that. And the last time I felt like this was the first Liverpool away win, and it started towards the end of the game where you get really, really nervous because you're hanging on for a really, really unexpected result. And I had the same feeling against City on Saturday, given that frantic ending. It was a very, very similar nervous kind of feeling. I don't know about you guys, but we'll get into all of that. But I think we have to start with the goals, don't we? And two very, very exceptional goals in very different ways. Obviously one by Gibbs-White and one by Anderson. But Kate talked me through those, because how you must have been feeling when they went in. Particularly as obviously they were two come from behind goals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, do you know, when half-time dawned and we were going in 1-0 down, I was like, that's okay. It's okay. It's still respectable. You know, a lot of what we've been doing has been working, and although it might have even been bordering on boring at times, like, it's working. 1-0 isn't the end of the world. We'll be okay. And then we had the just bit of pure genius and beauty that was that Morgan Gibbs-White goal. And honestly, seeing it go in the stand was remarkable. It felt like an absolute wonder goal, like you couldn't believe it. And then to get home and watch it back over and over and over again and see just everything about it was football intelligence, endeavour, having a go. Like, if he'd have tried to turn, you know, that's not a goal. But he didn't. He just somehow, somebody somewhere told him just to backheel it. And when you watch it and it megses him and it brushes past Donnarumma's it's just incredible. And the cheer that went up from that away end was like being back at Anfield. It was incredible. We were going absolutely mental, and it was just phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant. Just loved it.
Funny story about the first goal. I was watching it on TNT, as you know, and my stream was slightly behind in real time. And Danny was following the West Ham Fulham game on the Sky Sports football app, and he had the commentary on, so he was telling me what was going on in that game. Not watching it, but the text commentary. But he accidentally flipped to the Premier League scores overall, and he saw the one pop up against Forest by accident, and he looked at me and he was smiling, and I said, what's going on? Have we scored? Because obviously we hadn't seen it yet. And that was at the point where Gibbs-White had picked the ball up in his own half. And then obviously they went down the field. And even as Ola Aina crossed the ball, I still couldn't see how they were going to score because there was nobody there to bullet in a diving header. But obviously it transpired it was that back heel. But yeah, even though
then, like when the cross goes in, you think he might have overhit it a little bit,
Yeah.
and then Jesus just pulls something incredible off to get it under control, and then it ends up at his feet, but he's got nowhere to go, and it was just all of those things combined. It had no right to be a goal, did it? And
no, it didn't.
Oh,
It's like even with the ball of his feet, and I kind of knew we'd scored, but even as he had the ball of his feet, I still couldn't picture how we'd scored. But yeah, that was a funny story for the first one. But the second one was just as good, wasn't it, Mollo? Even in a very, very different way. But it was such a slick move and a great finish by Elliot Anderson.
It was cracking football. I mean, just the first goal, I couldn't work out how he'd scored until I watched it back properly. And but the second goal was really good football. But there was a less surprising element to it because it was very much a game of two halves. I think I wrote after the game, tactical masterclass away from home or sheer luck. I don't care, we got the point because we were dreadful in the first half. People saying it was a masterclass. I watched it back today and I'm like, we were asking for trouble, but Man City for some reason didn't really want to give it to us. You know, it wasn't so much the shape. The shape was fine. It was not a criticism of the whole back five and the way we did it. It was the fact we're letting them progress and we're standing 5 metres away. You know my thing, I know I've used the phrase before, West Hallam jockeying, we used to call it on Sunday morning, where you jockey someone. And if you're a Sunday League player, you can pick a pass. If you're a Premier League player, you can definitely pick a pass. They've got fantastic players. Some of them can hurt you and make you look stupid when you're too tight on them. I totally get that. But when you're standing off centre halves and midfielders who are there to pass and move, it wasn't perfect. And I read stuff at half time, people saying what a great first half, they only had one chance and they scored it, and it was a great finish by them and all that. I'm thinking, do I know nothing about football anymore? And it was really lovely to hear Gibbs White when I saw his interview later saying basically the same as what the manager went nuts at them and said, why aren't we engaging, have confidence in yourself? And you saw that second half. Of course we're not going to dominate possession, but we got tighter on them. There were moments, and I was watching Anderson close down, and he was with his hands telling other people to get tighter on them, and it was lovely to see that second half, showed what we did. And confidence is obviously not super high previous to the game, so I guess that first half was understandable. But to answer your question, once we did get that confidence from that absolute genius goal, the second goal, and this is going to sound really arrogant, but we were saying we're going to score again today. The way we're playing, even after they scored, so we could still get a 2-2 out of this, and we did. Wonderful, wonderful goal. I mean, Anderson to score it, you know, he gets a lot of stick. He doesn't score enough goals, and I watched the interview today, and Gibbs White gave him sticks, and I've been telling him he should get more goals, and why not now? That might uncork the bottle. I really hope so, like he did for Taiwo when we were fighting relegation a few years ago. Incredible goal, incredible team goal, incredible build-up, and at the centre of the whole thing again was Morgan Gibbs White's football intelligence. I watched an interview today, Max Scott talking about how Gibbs White dragged us into that game. Not just what he did there, and he's so right, and Anderson as well, but that first half, the work rate that was going on once they sort of, from those two guys in particular, because there was a lot of standing off going on, wasn't there? And there was one or two cones in midfield, so to speak, you know, just stood there being played around. And Gibbs White dragged us into that game with his goal, first of all, and then he made that goal, but goodness me, Anderson had a lot to do and he did it. And I have to mention, I haven't seen many people mention it, the perfection of the touch from Callum Hudson-Odoi into his path. The perfect weight, because there wasn't any room for manoeuvre, was there? No. So all of those things combined, the fact we can do that, and we've all known we've got it in our locker, should hopefully give the players the confidence to go and do it again. But let's not get carried away as fans, because we've been here too many times this season, haven't we? Yeah, I do want to expand
on what you said there, Mollo, and how important is it, Kate, that they demonstrated the ability to fight back twice away at a team like Manchester City, where they're not expected to get anything. And not only that, but they created a lot of chances as well. They had a couple in the first half. I know Jesus had a good effort from memory, and in the second half, Ryan Yates nearly won it at the end with a header. But how important is it to show that ability to fight back? Ideally, we don't want them to show that ability to fight back again, because we want them to go ahead and not have to come from behind all the time. But how those attributes and the character that they showed to actually do that, how important is that going to be for the team for the rest of the season, if they can sustain it?
Do you know, I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. I love being proved wrong. And I didn't have that confidence that you just mentioned, Mollo, after we conceded the second goal. I was back in Brighton. I was like, oh my, I can't believe it, because we were screaming, just hold, you know. And then when they got their second goal, I thought, oh, what a shame, what a terrible, terrible shame. I don't know that we've got a second goal in us. And how wrong was I? Because we had a second wonder goal in us. And yeah, if Yates had his head screwed on the right way, we might have even had a third. As much as it pains me to say that about Yatesy. I should have scored that, shouldn't he? Should have.
I mean, you can't really blame him, though. It was an instinctive header, and he didn't really have much time to do anything other than what he did. So it was hard. Yeah, I suppose. And I love him, but I just wanted to see that go in so bad. And it was you just felt just a little bit, and it's going the right way. But yeah, and you know, we all kind of grew with them, as we often do. You know, we talk about this a lot, about how we feed off each other, and we did, and we suddenly realised we were getting at them, we'd bothered them. You know, they weren't cruising, they weren't bossing it anymore. They realised that we'd come to play. And you know, I know that there's a lot of talk about them piping in crowd noise. I think they did that. I think they did that after we scored our second goal. I really do, because I was looking around and nobody was moving, and certainly nobody's mouths were moving, and yet I was hearing songs about Istanbul, and I was thinking, hang on a minute, where's that coming from? Is that us? Is that because we're in three tiers? And then I was like, no, it's not. So I would question whether maybe that happened, but we certainly didn't need anything piping in, because we were on our feet, voices loud, clapping, singing. I mean, my heart was thumping, thinking, please don't mess this up. And you know, we'll come on to Murillo being an absolute bloody legend as well when we talk about, you know, Morgan and Anderson and Callum and Jesus. I mean, you've got to give him some that goal line clearance. My goodness. And I mean, it should have been cleared before, but thank God he spotted that. When you see him nip back and kick it off the line, absolutely incredible. So yeah, I can't even remember what question you asked me now. I'm just like, oh! I was talking about the ability to fight back, Kate,
yes.
Twice.
And haven't we asked that of them? You know, we've asked that of them here. We've asked that of them in the stands, talking to other people. We've asked them to fight for the badge, and they 100% did that.
And it was very different to Brighton in the second half, wasn't it? And you could tell that after they scored, they cared, didn't they? The way they were celebrating, which was great to see. But nevertheless, they did concede 2 goals, and I want to touch on the ability to not hang on to a lead. They did it at Brighton, where they scored and let one in pretty much straight away, and they did it again at City, where they equalised and let one in pretty much straight away. How much of an issue is that, and is it easy to solve, do you think, Mollo? Is it something that they can perhaps address with the formation, or excuse me, is it a coaching issue or a concentration problem with the players?
It's psychological, isn't it? Because they've not been winning games. I think we alluded to it after the Brentford game, didn't we? The Brentford game this season and last season, on reflection, was so similar. And yet, last season, I sat there with no doubt in my mind we were going to keep a clean sheet, and once we scored, we'd win. This season, I stood with you, and we were like, ah! And then until Tyro got that winner. And it's psychological, and it's got to be the same for the players. We've all played sport, and if you're winning in that winning sort of run, you feed off it, don't you? So absolutely, it's solvable through stringing together more good performances and results ultimately. And how many times we've said this season about consistency and which Forest turn up. But we talk about that Murillo clearance, and having watched it back today, how far he travelled to know he had to be there. But I wrote on my notes beforehand not to forget, because I often think of things to say and write them down and forget. But I've got to say, we've been going for a maze this season, but that could at this point in the season be that turning point. Because to play that well second half, but then still lose the game would have been so difficult. And yes, they probably should have had a penalty. If it was the other way around, I'd have been upset. At the time I thought it was a dive, but having seen it back, Sells catches him with his shoulder and head, doesn't he? So I get it. I understand why they're mardy about it. But equally, we deserved that point, and we beat them 2-1 in the second half. And even though we had a game plan that was partially carried out in the first half, they still only scored one, even though I personally don't think we were at it, and neither did our manager by all accounts now. But we kept a really solid shape. We had a kind of... that first half was almost right, we've not been very good. We know we can't hurt you very much, and we might get the odd chance here and there, which even then we got like one good chance, didn't we, when good Gibbs White was unlucky. The way the pass didn't quite come in for him. But we're just going to outnumber you in the box. You're standing up high where we were. The narrowness of the game, you could see, it was like 5 really close together, 3 in front of them. And then obviously kind of well, to be fair, it was almost 4 in front of them in the first half, was it? Because as usual, Gibbs White put in his shift everywhere. And it was like, they're either going to get round the side of us, or they've somehow got to get through just a lot of players. You know, we've already got 2 fantastic centre halves there, and they've added another quite quick one who's sort of growing into it and won a couple of tackles and whatnot. But he was another body to be in there, wasn't he? Both fullbacks did their job defensively first and foremost. So it was interesting that even though it was a way of, maybe it was just a way of giving us that insurance that confidence could build from not getting... You know, how many times have we played City away in the last 3 years, and the game's away from us before you know it, and before we get started, it's like, or when we went to Anfield in the first couple of seasons. But we were solid, and it actually took a really good goal, a much better goal than I realised when I've seen it back. Very, very athletic goal from Semenyo, who's a terrific player, to break us down, didn't it? And fair play to them. It looks good, and I think got to take the confidence from it and use it, but still start solid. I'm reading some absolute rubbish about we've got to win our next 2. No, we've got to protect that clean sheet again first and foremost. Get a draw, hopefully, not lose to Fulham and take it from there, kind of thing.
I want to talk about the back 5, because unlike you, up until the goal, I thought they kept you mentioned they kept their shape really well, and I did notice that when the ball was on the right, whoever was playing, and they swapped fullbacks at one point as well. I think Aina was on the right at one point, and then he moved to the left, or vice versa. I can't remember which, but whoever was playing wide fullback was almost playing as a right-sided centre half when the ball was over the other side, and vice versa. Hence, showing that narrowness that you mentioned, Mollo. But I did feel as though the fullbacks, when the ball was over their side, they were letting City have the ball, weren't they? Clearly. And it was almost like the only way they were going to score was from a cross going round the outside, around the back. And sure enough, the goal did come from a cross, but I think it was a corner actually, though, wasn't it? I know certainly the first one, I felt that even though they were so narrow, and it was a good finish, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they should have let him even have the chance, to be honest, given the fact that they were trying to play so compact. And the other thing I remember as well, they had another chance that again was going down the side and coming back in, was when the ball went right across the middle and nobody was there to touch it in, and it was had that been touched,
2
even
feet.
Yeah, it was.
When you
and
see
so
it
that
on
was
TV. It's like you just see the feet appeared just as the ball's gone by. It was horrible. At the time I didn't even realise how close it was. Again,
that was another example of, I felt as though the only way they were going to score was to get round the back. But I want to... Is the formation that they played going to be something that they're going to look to continue, do you think, given the 5 and the success it had? Or is it going to be opponent-specific? I don't think they will play that way at home, but do you think away from home, Kate, they're going to show that 5 at the back more often?
I think they probably will. I think that's a Pereira thing, isn't it? You know, we read a little bit about that when we were looking him up before, when he was about to be announced, or when he'd just been announced. So I do think that they probably will do it. I do think even when you go back to Brighton, there was an impact, you know, when we changed formation. It was a positive one. You've certainly got to say that it's a massive positive today. I don't think it's a positive for all the players on the pitch, which, you know, we'll potentially come to in a minute. But yeah, you know, if we're trying something different and it's getting good results, why on earth wouldn't we do it again? And like you say, I can't see us doing it at home, certainly not starting off with it at home, but to know it's there, to know it's an option, to know it's something that we can do, to know it's something that they're looking at in training, and that it's something that this manager brings, I think is only a positive.
And again, Jair Cunha impressed, didn't he, Kate, when playing a full 90 away at a team like Manchester City? I think, was that his first full 90 in the league? I think it was, wasn't it? But he did all right, didn't he? And he's almost making a case for himself now. I don't know if he's ever going to be replacing their first choice centre halves, but he's making a case for more minutes, as we said a couple of podcasts ago, and maybe an expanded formation at the back is a way to get him involved. I don't know, we'll see, but he seems to have surpassed Morato now, doesn't he, in the pecking order at that position? Maybe
it's hard to. If you could combine the two of them, you'd have a great player, wouldn't you? Because Cunha's fast, really comfortable on the ball. He's almost like a ball player. He carries the ball, blast from the past. When he's running with the ball, he reminds me of Gareth Williams, the way he carried the ball. Do you know? You see what I mean by that? A very elegant ball player, but then Morato is quite dominant in the air, and between them, they cut out the mistakes. You've got a decent player, but time will tell. You know, what he has done is, you say, he's put up his hand to be considered for selection higher up the pecking order. It's only a couple of games, but you know, he's played those games with the protection of Murillo and Milenkovic around him, which has definitely helped. I think it's going to be horses for courses, because you nailed it already. The thing about City, they mostly want to come straight through the middle of you, don't they, and hurt you, and they couldn't do that. And they didn't really play with the kind of width that you'd call out-and-out wingers that we know they can have. You know, obviously they brought Doku on eventually. Someone like Fulham that tend to have strong wingers, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because they will get round the outside of you, and unless they put, you know, we've got three centre halves who should win the ball, but only needs it to happen once or twice, as it did this week. It's a trick. It's a horses for courses thing, isn't it? I just think if you're having three at the back, where are you losing elsewhere? Because ultimately, this was very much a backs to the wall defensive move, and completely understandable, and I absolutely support any manager that does that away at Man City. You're not going to go there and dominate them. But if you do that at home against Fulham, you're going to expect your fullbacks to get right up the pitch. And then you're going to have, I know it's a boring tactical thing, that at some point you're going to have someone like Cunha isolated one-on-one. And one thing we have seen, he's not particularly strong one-on-one defensively at the moment, is he? That's something he needs to develop. So then he gets beat, and then you've only got two centre halves in the. You know, it's a whole knock-on effect, isn't it? What you give with one hand, you take with the other. It's just weighing up the opposition. I personally think if we start with five at the back against Fulham, then I support that if that's what he chooses, because my number one, and I keep banging on about it, I just want to protect that clean sheet. Anything else beyond a point is a bonus, because the key is, because we're making an assumption that Tottenham will lose to Liverpool, we then play Tottenham level on points, and it becomes a kind of, not a winner takes all, but it becomes a very, very big game against a team who are lacking in confidence, a team that have been mullered at home, you know, by their fans. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's a great discussion point, but what it does show, it could be both winning the game, couldn't it? Because he's quite flexible like that. But I don't like losing. I understand why we do it this way. I don't like lusing Callum Hudson-Odoi from the starting lineup too often, or for too long, because he made a bit of a difference when he came on. But I understand why we started like that. And I don't think we'll start too many games with two wingers this season for the rest of the season either, which is unfortunate for the wingers. And I think there's competition now to play alongside Anderson based on the last few games as well.
I think that's what I like about it as well, is that we're talking about a player that potentially isn't in that magical starting 11 that we say, we need to be playing, that are our strongest side. We're talking about somebody that hasn't been in that this season, and we're saying that it's a positive, that they've got something to offer, that they don't make us weaker. So in that respect, Cunha is a right bonus.
It's almost like a new signing, isn't it?
Yeah. The other thing I wrote down, because I guess we're going to talk about going forward, we always talk about play your strongest side. I actually wrote it down today, not what our strongest side is. We haven't got a strongest side, have we? What we've got is, if you include a goalkeeper, but we've got 8 players that have to start every game. And that's the problem. And then the rest is what depends on your formation, the opposition, maybe form. And you've got, the goalkeeper and the back 4 pick themselves. Sometimes there'll be a 5th. Anderson picks himself. Gibbs White picks himself. And at the moment, because of circumstances and injuries, Jesus picks himself. All of the others are kind of, if you play with a winger, of course, your first choice winger I'd say is Callum Hudson-Odoi. If you play without wingers, then you've got competition for those 3 midfield spots between 3 players to get the other 2 positions alongside Anderson. And it's good that that's happening, but I'm kind of flipping it into, I don't mean to, flipping it into a negative. It's not that we've got a good starting 11 and extra players, it's that we've only got 8, possibly 9, because I'm being unfair, who are that spine that we have to have. And that's assuming our fullbacks keep good form, because there's that little dip. And that's what worries me is, someone's going to say it at some point, aren't they? We basically got that result with 10 players, didn't we? In a sense. We had a passenger on the pitch on that particular day. And I'll take no pleasure from it, by the way, even though it's been my biggest thing this season. And it's so frustrating. When I watched it back today. And he has that magical 5 minutes where the forward passing and the probing, and you think, why don't you do more of that? And then disappears again. But to be fair, the midfield of City was just a bit too good for that particular player. But anyway,
answers on a postcard if you know who Mollo is talking about, because we haven't actually named him.
Another shocker.
Yeah, but Morato, going back to Morato, he did come on at the end along with Yates, because we knew exactly what was coming at the end, and it was a backs to the wall job, and it was almost like they had to defend for their lives. We've talked about that Murillo clearance right at the end, which was pretty much the last kick of the game before the whistle went. But how nervous was it?
Goal in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it did. How nervous were you, Kate, in the stands at the other end, because you must have been biting your long nails?
I didn't like it when we made the changes. I understood them. I've said this before. It felt like we were weakening at a time when we needed to be standing strong. And, thank Murillo that we got away with it, and we did take that point home. But there were, Morato gave away a corner, and I'm going to say gave away a corner.
Yeah, 50 pence head.
And, Yates gave away that bloody free kick, and it did feel like we were weakening. So it did make me uncomfortable when I was already uncomfortable, because at that point you are just, please, come on, please. And even when they said how long, stoppage was, you knew it was going to be another minute after that at least. And so it was all that going on, and then that crazy bit where the goal line clearance was made, and it was right at the other end, and you couldn't quite make out what was going on, but you knew it wasn't good. So yeah, my heart did not. We didn't get home till gone 1 o'clock, because the traffic was bad going back, and they were just randomly closing roads all over Sheffield. But my heart was still banging. It is a you get so het up in it that it is hard, to come down from it afterwards. But all's well that ends well, and it was such an amazing point, and a point that I genuinely believe will pay dividends as we move forwards.
For the record, I don't believe it was a penalty conceded by Matt Sells against Haaland. I agreed with the commentators on the TV in that Haaland knew exactly what he was doing in knocking the ball past Sells. It looked like the ball was going out of play, and if you look closely at Sells, he kind of pulled away a little bit because he knew what was coming, and it was almost like Haaland went into Sells rather than the other way round. That was my 2 pennies worth, and I know Haaland went down for a second penalty, I think, when I don't know who the defender was, when he touched his shoulder and he went down like a sack of spuds, and again that wasn't a penalty. And even the third one that they talked about with Rodri and Anderson, that wasn't a penalty either. So I know City are being a bit mardy about the whole thing, especially in their post-match interviews. Pep didn't want to talk about it, but I don't think they've got anything to complain about at all. Now, talking of post-match interviews, I don't know whether you guys have seen the Morgan Gibbs-White one that he gave as they were doing their warm-down, and I watched it on a big screen on a TV, and I'm sure at one point when he was talking about his love for the team and the fans, his eyes watered. And you can't spot it on a mobile because it's not big enough, but I watched it on my TV, and I said to Danny, has he got water in his eyes? And he goes, yeah, he has, and it looked like he was about to cry. But just and that was like, well, he cares. You can see he loves the club and he loves the team and he loves the fans, and
he's probably still
cared.
Sweating. He ran that much.
Yeah. But that was the takeaway that I got from that post-match, in that not only were they buzzing about the result, but it showed he cared. I know they came under some criticism from us last week about perhaps their attitude, not him, but others. But for me, it was almost like chalk and cheese between Brighton and City, wasn't it, in terms of how they care. They seem to care, and that was a takeaway I got from that post-match interview. But we move on to Fulham, of course, in a week or just over a week's time. But Molo's moment, Molo, any particular thing you want to choose? Because I guess there are plenty of them to choose.
There are plenty of them. There's only one in there, because it could even end up as the moment of the season, couldn't it? Because equalising against Man City and the nature of that goal from Morgan Gibbs-White, and that's what gave us what we, ultimately the belief. I was going to say what you were saying about looking like they don't care. I don't kind of think that's quite the word. They look and have been looking at times, and particularly in Brighton, that they lack belief. And they looked like they lacked belief, most of them in the first half, but the one guy, or 2 guys in particular, didn't look like they lacked belief, was Morgan Gibbs-White, followed by Anderson. And they dragged us, and their belief rubbed off, and his belief to score that goal clearly was something special. So that was the moment, because it got us the point in a sense, didn't it? Everything that followed came through Morgan Gibbs-White, the way he was playing. Maybe scoring that goal gave him even more confidence, I don't know, but like you say, he really cares, and we know he's got belief. And when he's getting criticism because things aren't quite working out for him, and people start going, this, that and the other, yeah, of course we don't want him to do it in the wrong areas, but he seems to be doing a lot less of that at the moment. He's doing it in the right areas, but he's got the belief to keep trying those things, whereas lesser players in other teams, and we could name 1 or 2 during this season for us, they do the easy thing and take the simple way out. So my moment by a country mile, even though I loved Anderson's goal and whatnot, and I loved the clearance, Morgan Gibbs-White, finish, goal, celebration, head exploding, everything.
Right, what about man of the match, Kate? Who are you going to go for? And there's 10. You alluded to the fact there could be 10 to choose from, not 11, but 10. Who are you going to go for?
There was a part of me that wanted to go a little bit left field and go for Murillo, just because that clearance was so important. But it can't be anybody other than Morgan Gibbs-White, because he absolutely bossed that game. He captained that team magnificently, and he got them playing. He, got them believing. He scored that incredible goal. Like you say, his heart was just absolutely in it, and we are not the team that we can be without Morgan Gibbs-White, and that game absolutely personifies that. So it can be nobody else, Morgan Gibbs-White.
Are you going to agree, Mollo, or are you going to go elsewhere?
Well, I think you're wrong, Kate. No, not at all. You can't argue with it, can you? It goes back to what we've been saying for a couple of years. When Morgan Gibbs-White plays well, we play well. Now, I get that we didn't win, but we were playing one of the top sides in the world on their own patch with their boring side-to-side passing and stuff, so we hardly saw the ball. And like Kate said, when we had the ball, he was at the centre of absolutely everything. And when we didn't have the ball, he was everywhere. So I'd love to see his running stats at the end of the season. He must have run about 10 marathons. It's unbelievable. But yeah, Morgan by a mile. Yeah,
I'm going to make it a hat-trick. I think he's coming into form again at just the right time. And you'd like to think he'd be in contention for a place on the plane for the World Cup squad, because you look at the likes of Cole Palmer, it's not really in good form at the minute. Phil Foden's gone right off the boil. Jude Bellingham's not in great form. He's got to have a chance to make the plane, surely, on the back of this form. Obviously, Elliot Anderson's probably going to be a shoe-in for the plane. And I do want to give him a nod as well, because he was very close to getting my vote for man of the match as well. But I think Gibbs-White just shaded it for me.
Any other day, you play the way Elliot Anderson played, you get man of the match, don't you? It's just unfortunate that there was I don't know what you gave him on your finalysis, Kate, but I gave Morgan 100. Just, you can't play any better than that in a sense, can you, in the role that you play? It was incredible, so yeah. And Morgan Rogers
it's the last
bit as well.
Yeah, him as well. Now, interesting, in our tally for the Tricky Talks Player of the Season, obviously we tally up every single game. Gibbs-White was kind of lagging behind a little bit, but he's actually out in front now. I won't say by how many, because there's a few games left, but his run of form lately has put him out in front in terms of our Player of the Season at the moment. It's not over yet.
Invisible, I know, because there's 4 of us sometimes. What I was going to say, when he wins man of the match, it's usually without debate, isn't it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it is.
You don't go,
he's had a few of those.
Well, and I'm going to choose him because there's, we all mentioned Anderson and Murillo and all the other lads who put in a shift last night, but he's just out in front when he plays like that. Because he's playing one of the hardest roles on the pitch, isn't he? Because he's not just working hard; he's having to create, and boy, did he create!
Yeah. Right, let's look at the relegation run in general. Supported by the fact Spurs collapsed again against Crystal Palace, and Van der Ven is going to miss one game, I believe, for denying a goal scoring opportunity, which is a shame because we're playing Spurs in 2 games' time, but they're very much in the mix now, as are Leeds. I think Leeds have gone off the boil a bit. They've lost 2 on the bounce, so they're not too far ahead now. So we've got to bring Leeds into the conversation as well. And just to summarise who everybody have got over the next couple of games, West Ham, as you know, you probably got City at home, and Forest have got Fulham at home, Tottenham have got Liverpool away, and Leeds have got Palace away. So I said a couple of weeks ago when we started to look at the run-in, this looked like the next league game was a pivotal weekend in terms of taking advantage of an opportunity to gain ground or put some daylight between teams, and that still remains the case. It's another opportunity. Now, fair to say they've not taken advantage of any opportunity so far where it's been presented to them, albeit Man City was a point, an unexpected point. But this is another one, isn't it, Kate, where if they can somehow, first of all, protect that clean sheet, but even better, grab a win, it's got the potential to be really, really important.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Do you know what? The most informed team in the relegation scrap at the moment surely has to be Wolves.
Yeah.
They've got 6 points in 2 games. How on earth has that happened? And as much as you had a little bit of a chuckle about Liverpool, I'm like, it's going to stop being funny soon. We need to stop that now, please. I don't think there's going to be daylight right until the end of the season. I can't see any team significantly pulling away at this stage.
Even a point is daylight, Kate. That's a little bit of daylight, and that will do, won't it?
It will, and it is the kind of thing that could absolutely come down to goal difference at the end of the season. It feels that tight. I watched the Spurs game yesterday because, wanted a giggle. And if they continue to be that bad, then absolutely they're going down. Supposed Big Six team or not, then there's absolutely no reason why they wouldn't go down. I still find it difficult to believe that they will. But then you watch them and you think, yeah, they absolutely could. I still think, looking at it game for game, West Ham probably have the hardest fixtures overall from now till the end of the season. Molo's already touched on it. We should be able to use this as a springboard, as a point to build from, but we haven't managed to do that all season. So we should now be looking at Fulham and saying, like we've said before, if we play like that against Fulham, then we should win the game. Will we play like that against Fulham? Absolutely no idea. I would really, really hope so. But I think it's impossible to say right now, because the games that we've all got difficult games in there, and none of us are consistent, because if we were, we wouldn't be in the relegation battle. So I do think it's impossible to say. I do think, having watched all of the teams play recently, I watched the Burnley-Brentford one as well, Spurs are the team that are playing the worst at the moment, for sure.
And they've got the most injuries.
Mm-hmm. And they seem to be having a great time, getting players sent off as well. That's all good fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and they don't.
I've got a concern about Spurs, and I hate voicing it, because I think I was, as a month or two back, I said Spurs might be one who slip into it and we could potentially catch, because they're playing so badly, and what they did at the City ground was an embarrassment when they turned up. But, and it's a big but, the abuse they're getting, the stick they're getting, because as you know, I've been at home today, the abuse they're getting on Sky, on Talk Sport, on social media, everywhere, that's going to pull them together a bit. And then by the time we play them, they've got their first choice centre halves both back from suspension. They've not been injured, they've both been suspended. Mm-hmm. And that, if we can get the first goal, because last night, I watched that game and it was like, they're not that bad at the moment. They're matching Palace, who are not a bad side. Then they scored, then they conceded straight away, and then it was like the pin had been put in a balloon. And we've seen us do that, let's not forget. And Palace destroyed them for the rest of the first half, and it should have been 5 or 6 in a way. Then second half, Palace just sat on it against 10 men. And I looked at them and I thought, I'm not seeing a lot. And I think one of the commentators may have mentioned it as well. And I was saying, this is insane. They've got all these players that look good on paper, and the standout player seems to be Archie Gray, who's like a young kid who probably wasn't expecting to play as many games as he has in the last 12 months. That's why I'm really wary and really cautious, because they're going to have had a team meeting. They're going to be like... Some of those players haven't been bad all the time, if that makes sense. They haven't signed players... like this is brutal, but some of our backup players that we know haven't been good enough yet, have never shown anything in the Premier League, some of them yet. Hopefully they will, but they haven't. They've got players out there like Pedro Porro was one of the best right backs in the first half of last season, wasn't he, before they fell apart. They've got they brought off the bench Bissouma, who I remember him being a top player at Brighton. They brought on Richarlison, a £60 million centre forward. They've got good players talent wise, but their confidence is shot to bits. But they're going to arrive at the City ground. Oh, sorry, we're going to arrive there. Sorry, not arrive at the City ground. I wish. And they're going to be right. this stops now. And if it doesn't, they're gone. But it won't be next week, obviously, but when we play them, that is going to be their first genuine chance for a long while to arrest this slide. And we're going to see what they're made of. And I'm saying that almost like I'm a Spurs perspective, which we've got to look at. But they've also given up the fans, haven't they? And
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, they've gone. They're against them.
Game. It's when there's no expectation and there's no hope. That's when football surprises you. And one thing I think we've also learnt in the last few weeks, and as Kate said, because of Wolves, the running is irrelevant who you're playing at the moment. Because I'm now looking at that running and thinking, they've got to go away to Wolves. That's a tough game. No, we said that 3 weeks ago. Like you say, 2 wins and a draw with Arsenal. A draw with us, which doesn't look quite so bad now, does it? As it did then. It's just, if we weren't in the middle of it, I'd be saying, what a brilliant relegation battle. But I'm absolutely hating it, obviously.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Wolves have got to play West Ham, Spurs and Leeds in the run-in. So maybe an unexpected turn of results for Wolves continues. Perhaps that would be good. Obviously, for those of you out there who are less optimistic than us three and Chelsea and have literally condemned Forest to relegation, you'll be pleased to know that as from next season, the Championship playoffs are expanding so that teams in 3rd to 8th place now qualify for the playoffs.
Has that been confirmed?
It has been confirmed, yeah. So you'd like to think, worst case scenario, Forest should be good enough to finish in the Championship top 8, but let's hope it doesn't come to that.
That year we missed out on goal difference, we'd have been all right under this system, wouldn't we?
That's
so.
I think it's brilliant in the National League, but I think the step up from a lot of those top half National Leagues to the bottom half of League 2 isn't very big, as we've seen with Notts County and whatnot, and the teams that have gone up again or gone up and challenged. But 8th place in the Championship versus 4th from bottom in the Premier League, that's a massive, massive step.
So teams 5th to 8th playing a one-off quarter-final tie, and the winners of that go to play the teams in 3rd and 4th in the usual standard 2-legged semi-final. So let's hope we're not involved, to be fair.
And that'd go into it with momentum as well, wouldn't they? Because they've got the bonus game.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a big call by the Football League or whoever's agreed it.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Couple of other bits of news very briefly before we draw to a close. It looks like Edu might be on his way out of the club if you read reports, particularly by John Percy. Quick comment on that, Kate?
See ya.
Yeah, it's the writing seems to be on the wall, doesn't it?
Yeah, not be missed.
No.
I don't speak to anybody that's pro-Edu. I speak to people that say he's a nice guy, but I don't think he's done us any favours. And it's a long time coming. And if we could go back and come down on Nuno's side as opposed to Edu's side, I think we'd be in a very different place right now. So, yeah, see you.
And the other bit of news that's floating about, certainly since Wednesday, is there are various outlets reporting Elliot Anderson to Man City is a done deal, in inverted commas, but it seems it could be just media talk. They say, I always laugh at these reports because they say Anderson prefers a move to City over United. It's like, how on earth do you know that? Have you spoken to him? Has he admitted it publicly or directly to you? Probably not. So why bother? But thoughts, Molo, on that?
It's stirring agent trying to do that, and I can't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we extended his deal recently. I might have that wrong. So it's win-win for Forest. I love him. He's a fantastic player. But if he ends up at one of the big guns, it's not going to be much shy of 100 million or more. And with that kind of money, with a decent recruitment person, I'm going to say it probably won't be Edu this time. You can get yourself 2 midfielders that could do the job in the Premier League. I mean, you don't have to look far, do you, to see players that have come in for not a lot of money in comparison to that have done a great job. Xhaka being an obvious one at Sunderland, who's a terrific player. Zubimendi at Arsenal was 60 million, I think. So the two of them, 70, 80 million, that's a hell of a lot of money, but probably less than what Anderson would go for. The question is getting the right people. That said, I would much rather see him stay and develop, because he's only going to get better, as he showed against City, as he added that one thing to his game we've all been saying we need. So, yeah.
I remember when Morgan was going to Spurs. That's what I say about that.
Yeah. Right. Any final thoughts from you, Kate?
No, I'm excited for the first leg against Midtjylland. I am hoping that he plays a strong side. We've said it before. I know we'll potentially touch on it a little bit more with the Garibaldi Girls episode that's hopefully incoming next week. But yeah, we go on to Midtjylland now, and every game's important, and I'm looking forward to it.
Anything from you, Molo?
Yeah, similar. Start with those 8 core players that we need to have in a starting lineup, and mix the rest how you see fit. Maybe someone like Yatesy for his sheer physicality against them. And secondly, I don't want to talk about Deitch, Nuno, Ange any more this season. We can do the post-mortem at the end of the season, if you know what I mean. It's come now, we draw a line and we just get right behind them, because not last night, because we're a day late now, aren't we? But against Man City, the support was magnificent. We need that at home now. We need that back. I saw a really good post today, someone talking about where we were this time in the first 2 seasons compared to now. We're better off now, but do you remember the atmosphere against Fulham and Brighton in that first season? And that was Fulham and Brighton, not Liverpool or Man United or whatever, not to disrespect those 2 clubs. And it was an incredible atmosphere, and it helped get the players over the line, without a doubt. It can't not help. Compare that, and this is why I worry again about Spurs, compare that to the atmosphere you could sense at Spurs for those who hadn't gone home at half-time. And what would you rather do your work in as a footballer? That's what I'm worried about, though, because Spurs, if they've got one brain cell between them, and I think they have got one somewhere, they're going to have to draw a line under everything and get behind their team that game. And that's what scares me a bit. Or maybe it's just because I'm scared, full stop.
Right, the only thing remains from me is just on the back of what Kate said, hopefully next week we're going to be bringing you a Garibaldi Girls special episode in lieu of the gala that's coming up, and we can obviously share more details on that episode next week. In the meantime, thanks everybody for listening and for watching, and we shall be back with you real soon. Bye for now.